Well, all of these famous people all look different, they come from different backgrounds, and they've all lived different lives. They have two very important things in common. Can you guess what they are? Take a deeper look. Well, yes, they have all passed away. May they rest in peace. They also all passed away without a trust in place. So what that means is when they died, their multi-million-dollar estates were opened up through probate court to all of their creditors and anyone vying for their assets. And boy, oh boy, did people coming crawling out of the woodwork after some money, honey. Now, why do I care about this? Because I have been building my business teaching people how to build and preserve wealth. And it's near and dear to my heart because the way I see it is, what's the point in learning how to build wealth if you don't have the right documents in place to protect it and allow it to continue on from generation to generation? So if you want to maintain control of your money, your assets, and your kids, yes, your kids, meaning you don't want them going to foster care if anything were to happen to you. You want to dictate who is going to take over caring for your children. And you want to keep the creditors, the courts, and the public out of your business. If you were to get sick, injured, or worse, pass away, you need to have these two documents in place. First, it's important to mention that an estate plan is more than just die and distribute. There is plenty for an estate plan to do while you're still alive. We all need advocates that know us and will act in our best interest. And in order to do that, they need to be empowered through the legal documents that you will find inside of a will. Now, you might assume that that person might be your spouse or maybe your parent, but not necessarily is that the case. And especially if you don't want that to be the case, you need to empower people through these legal documents. An advanced healthcare directive outlines your medical care preferences if you were to become incapacitated, and it also empowers an individual to make end-of-life decisions on your behalf. And this is extremely important because if you ever were to end up in a situation where death is near, and let's say you just want to get the plug pulled, you got to document that. Or maybe you want to fight for your life. You've also got to document that because individuals are going to step up as your next of kin, and they're going to make the decisions on your behalf. And if you want them made how you want them made, not how those individuals would want them made, you want to make sure that is documented in writing. Then there is the HIPAA Authorization form, which ensures that your healthcare provider shares your medical information with the individuals that you would want to be able to receive it. This might be a spouse, this might be a family member. And again, if you're ever in a situation where you need somebody else to get a copy of your medical records, it's very important that this is done so that there is no hiccups and no headaches when that person tries to get the documents they need to get. Hospitals are not going to release your documents to just anybody. Their licenses are at the line. They're not going to do that without seeing an actual HIPAA authorization. So please make sure that you get this done. And lastly, there is a power of attorney, which is you designating an individual to make financial decisions on your behalf if you were to become incapacitated. And very similar to the other two, if this situation ever were to arise, you're going to want somebody that you trust to be able to get access to any of your financial information. So having this as part of your will is very important. These documents can be made effective immediately or upon incapacitation. If you are married or have a spouse, you might want them effective immediately. If not, you will probably want them effective upon incapacitation. Now, at the very least, you want to get a will set up because it takes care of you not just while you're alive, but also if and when you pass away. A will is going to dictate the distribution of your assets. That is where you can list your funeral instructions, and that is also where you can list who will be taking care of your dependents. Now, if you don't have a will in place and you have kids, there is a very high chance that your kids could enter the foster care system if you were to pass away while the court figures out which family member is best suited to take care of them. Even if you have verbally made arrangements with family members or friends, if this is not in writing, there is a very high chance your kids could enter the foster care system. And remember, a will does not protect your estate from having to go through probate court. It still needs to do that. When you pass away, the probate court process will fall on your next of kin. And this process can take anywhere from 12 to 18 months, and it can be very expensive. According to USA Today, probate typically costs between 3 to 7% of the estate's value. So for an estate valued at $500,000, costs could range from 15 to 35 grand. And guess what? That cost falls on your next of kin, which might be a sibling, it could be a parent, it might even be a spouse. You think they're gonna like you very much if you dump that financial responsibility on them? Well, guess what? there's an even cheaper way to ensure that your next of kin doesn't ever get burdened financially by your passing, and that is called a trust. This is where we enter a trust. A trust is the only legal document that allows all of your assets to legally bypass the probate court process. With a trust, you control who, how, and when your assets are distributed to your beneficiaries. You can't have rules in place that dictate how and why someone can access money from the trust and if it is required to get paid back. For example, let's say one of the beneficiaries wants to borrow money out to pay for a brand new car or to go to college. You could put a requirement in there that they must show that they have a part-time job before you will give them that money. Maybe they want to borrow money out to go and start a business. Well, you could have a requirement that they need to be able to present a business plan to the trustees before they can get access to money. Maybe they want to borrow money out to go and travel the world, and you put a requirement in there that they need to present an itinerary that shows they're doing the travel for education and knowledge, not for partying. Maybe they want to borrow money out to pay for a wedding. You can have an allotment for that. Maybe they need to borrow money out because they have to pay for medical expenses. There could be rules around that as well. Either way, rules for accessibility are very important because remember, if you give somebody access to money that is not ready to inherit it, for example, maybe a 16-year-old inherits $1 million because a family member passed away. Well, on average, they're going to keep 16 cents to the dollar, which means they have a significantly higher chance of going bankrupt, even though they inherited money. The key for your estate that you've worked so hard to build is to last from generation to generation. This type of living trust is called a Dynasty Trust. Found in this article on Schwab.com, the main feature of a Dynasty Trust is in its ability to avoid estate and generation skipping taxes each time wealth is transferred from one generation to the next. Now you may be thinking, well, how do I know if I'm ready for an estate plan? I truly do believe once you start to own some assets or you have children or a family, it's time and it's important to sit down and get an estate plan put together, especially if you are single and you are not married. You want to make sure you have these legal documents in place to help your assets and your kids avoid having to go through probate court. And if you don't have a lot of money to deposit into your trust, you can always do what the Rockefellers did and just purchase some permanent life insurance and make the trust the beneficiary. Now, I want to be very clear when I make this statement that I'm not saying that the Rockefellers built their wealth by their trust inheriting the life insurance from their dead family members. That is obviously not true. The Rockefellers built their wealth through businesses over time. However, they were able to sustain and grow their wealth by making sure that every new family member that was born got a permanent life insurance policy that the trust owned and was the beneficiary of. That way, when that money gets borrowed out of the trust, they can ensure that the trust always gets replenished with the passing of that individual by inheriting the life insurance. Remember, an estate plan is not just about distributing your assets when you die. It's also about making sure that your wishes are granted while you are alive and when you're no longer here, and that your family is protected from this lifetime and beyond. So if you love your family, you care about them, and you want to bless them, you don't want to curse them, please make this a priority this year. I am not an estate planning attorney, nor am I even an attorney at all. I'm just a financial professional that really cares about you helping make sure that your wealth passes on from generation to generation. If you want to get an estate plan set up and you want to talk to a live human being, I recommend that you connect with an estate planning attorney where you live to navigate you through this process. If you would prefer to do things virtually and not converse with an actual attorney, I actually have access to a platform you can do this through. There is a life insurance carrier that I do business through that gives a free will and trust estate plan with every single policy that gets set up. That is through Ethos. You're welcome to click the link below in the description of this video to get access to that platform. And if you like this video and you want to see more like it, please make sure you click the subscribe button and hit the bell to turn on notifications because I release a new video every week. Wouldn't want you to miss it. Share this video with anyone you know that owns assets and has kids or a family. And I look forward to seeing you back here next week on YouTube.